all my single ladies in Single Over 30. What I'd like to do today is to talk with you about ghosting. So yesterday I did a live on what to do if a man ghosts you, and today what I want to do is I want to talk with you about what to do if a man ghosts you and then he comes back. So let's imagine for just a minute that you've been seeing a man, or maybe you're just getting to know a guy, and then he disappears and he comes back. So what are you supposed to do about this? So there's not just like a one size fits all for the answer to this question, like what do you do about this? There are several different scenarios. So there are a few important things to consider that's going to affect your response when something like this happens. So the first thing that you want to do is, before you talk with him or respond to him reaching back to you, what you want to do is you want to identify the stage of the relationship, right? You want to do the definition of the relationship. So you want to ask yourself, was this an exclusive relationship? Were we just getting to know each other and we were just talking to each other? Were we talking to each other and we were discussing a relationship and then all of a sudden he disappeared? Or was it serious? What was going on in the relationship? So your answer to this question about defining the relationship is going to determine your response to a man when he ghosts you and he comes back. So if you determine that you were not exclusive and you were just getting to know each other, you do not want to assign exclusive dating behavior to him or have those kinds of expectations of a guy when he's not your guy. So until you are exclusive, what you do is you forfeit the right to be offended or to have hurt feelings. I know that's so hard to do. If he disappears and comes back when you do not have grounds for a relationship, there wasn't a clear expectation of the definition of the relationship, and you didn't have any expectations about what the next step in the relationship was, like you didn't have a date or something like that. So I know firsthand this is really difficult to do, especially when you really like a guy or you're afraid of being abandoned. But defining the relationship at the beginning, before you respond or before you talk to him, is going to help you keep a clear head, right? So if he reaches out and it's through text, and this is a guy you've just been talking to, there's no serious relationship, you're not talking about a relationship, anything like that, you can say, I'm not really into texting. If you'd like to call, I'd love to connect. So then if he calls, then you kind of know that maybe he's interested in moving forward. If he does not call, then you know he's not interested and he's not intentional. And if he's not intentional about moving forward, then you don't want to be intentional either. You want to move on. So make sure this is really, really important to remember, because I see women do this and we don't mean to, but we put these expectations on a guy, and sometimes it can really hurt a relationship that could turn into something good. So what you want to do is you want to make sure that when he reaches out, if you have not defined the relationship and you were just talking, don't come off as irritated or angry or that he's in the doghouse, right? Because there's no expectation for that. Because if he senses that you're mad, and if he senses that you're going to make him pay when you really, he may have had a legitimate reason for disappearing and there's no basis for a serious relationship anyway, he might not call, right? If he feels like he's in trouble with you. So what you want to do is you want to stay upbeat. Hey, it's great to hear from you. And then you wait to hear from him and see what's been going on in his life, right? And that could keep the relationship from dying then, by not putting that expectation there. Next, if you were just getting to know each other and you were supposed to have a date, let's say he said he would call you, or he said he'd call you on Tuesday, or you were going to go out on Saturday, and he stands you up, and then he reaches out to you, it's pretty clear that he's not interested. So you're not his priority, so you do not want to make him yours. So this doesn't mean, it just means that you're allowing him to lead the relationship and you're making sure that you're on the same page as he is. Because you only want to give a man as much emotional connection and attachment and as much of your heart as he is giving you, right? You don't want to set your heart aside for someone who isn't being intentional about a relationship with you. So if you'd like, what you can do is you can let this kind of guy know, I was really looking forward to getting together, but it looks like you're not interested in moving forward, so I'm just going to move on. So in this statement, what you're doing is, you don't need to be mean, but you're letting him know that you have self-respect and that you have standards, and this is going to weed the guys out. So remember, and I've said this before, that you train people how they are going to treat you. So if a guy says he's going to call and he doesn't, or if he stands you up for a date, or he blows you off in some way, this guy is not intentional or serious about you. Next, the next kind of guy is exclusive dating guy. So let's say you're exclusively dating a guy, and he reaches out to you in text, and there are some different variables. It could be that maybe he just didn't call you when he said he was going to one day and you didn't hear from him until the next morning, or maybe you were going to go out and then he, didn't reach out to you or something. Maybe a long period of time passed. There's all different kinds of variables, right? But if a guy who you were exclusively dating reaches out to you via text, you can say, I'm not really interested in texting right now, or I'm not into texting, but I'd love to talk to you by phone. If he doesn't call, you want to step back and you don't want to move toward him, right? Do not chase a guy who is walking away from you. So again, I know this can be really difficult to do. If he does call, you can just ask him, hey, what happened? And listen and see if you think that what he's telling you is legitimate. Like he got in a car accident, maybe his cell phone died, he was struggling with something, or something else, right? We don't want to be too strict sometimes, depending upon what the circumstances of the situation are. But the great news is dependent upon the circumstance, you get to decide how much you're going to let him into your life. You get to set the boundaries. If he says he wants a relationship, you can let him know what you need if it warrants a big thing. But again, if it was something like my cell phone died and I didn't get to call you tonight at 8 o'clock because my cell phone died and I just got home and it's 10 o'clock, right? That's something that you don't want to make a bigger deal of than it is, right? These things happen to people all the time. It was something like he blew you off and you didn't hear from him for a week. That's a different thing. So then you get to decide what type of boundaries you're going to set in your life. So you're going to see if he's sincere. And if he's not sincere, then you want to walk away from that situation. So a few more closing thoughts that are really important to keep in mind is that remember that Mr. Ghost Man, whoever he is, whichever type of man he is, that I just described, if he's one of these three guys, he's not the only guy on the planet, right? There are 26 million single men in the United States are available. So I often say that it's not that there aren't good guys out there to date. The problem is that we women, and believe me, I've been one of those women, we get stuck in dysfunctional or non-productive dating relationships because we clutch onto, or we chase, or we hold on to men, try to convince them to be in relationship with us, and then that's where we get stuck, right? So a man's behavior towards you is going to reveal his intentionality and his seriousness about you, and it's going to help weed out the guys who are really interested and those who aren't. But if you clutch on to a guy and you don't have good boundaries and you don't expect a man to, stand by his word, then you're going to train him to treat you poorly, and then you're not going to get the clarity that you need, right? You want clarity to find out, hey, is this a good relationship? Could it possibly go somewhere or not? The next thing is you don't want to automatically take the blame. There are certain personality types, and I was one of those, is that whenever there's something that goes on in a relationship, goes wrong in a relationship, we automatically assume it's our fault. But sometimes when a guy disappears, like if it's in the stage of, you guys are just getting to know each other, or even if you're dating, sometimes it really is because he has a lot going on in his life. And if you're dating him and you didn't have plans to meet, he didn't blow you off, it could just be they got busy with work and he got distracted with something. This happened in my relationship with my husband when we were just getting to know each other. I hadn't heard from him for a little bit, for a day and a half or whatever, and I reached out to him and he was just, he had all kinds of stuff that had happened. The dog got sick, there was mud all over the house, he had a disaster at work, there are all these kinds of things that happened. And then when we talked, he told me what had gone on, right? And so I told him, that made me feel uncomfortable. And because he was serious about me and I didn't get all emotional and start crying and blame him or shame him or anything like that, I just told him, hey, if anything like that ever happens again, could you just check in, with text? Because it makes me feel uncomfortable and I need to know that you're still there. And by then we had developed that type of trust between us so that we could talk. And he was like, sure. And so from then on, that's what he did, right? So just don't assume that just because a guy, disappears, if you're getting to know him or starting dating or whatever, that there's something wrong, right? It could just be that he's distracted, right? It's those one-track minds that men have. Sometimes they get focused in on work and things happen. All right, I hope this has been helpful, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.